Welcome to the channel, The Coin Lore Vault. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people see quarters as just 25 cents, something you toss into a parking meter or use at a laundromat without a second thought. But hiding among ordinary circulation quarters is a coin so rare, so valuable, that it has sold for over $1.1 million. Yes, you heard that right, $1.10 million for a single quarter. We're talking about the 1994 D Washington quarter, a coin that looks completely normal on the surface but harbors a secret that has turned casual coin collectors into overnight millionaires and left numismatic experts absolutely stunned. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular quarter worth more than most people's homes, I need you to stick around because after we uncover the mystery of this 1994 D beauty, we're going to reveal two more Washington quarters that are even more valuable. One that shattered records at over $1 million and another that completely rewrote the book on what modern quarters can be worth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1994 D phenomenon first. The year 1994 doesn't seem particularly special at first glance, does it? The Denver Mint was churning out millions upon millions of Washington quarters that year. Business as usual, quarters flowing into circulation to help Americans make their daily transactions. Nothing out of the ordinary, or so everyone thought. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Somewhere in that massive production run, something went terribly, beautifully wrong at the mint. You see, the 1994 D Washington quarter that's worth over $1 million isn't just any regular quarter. It's an error coin, and not just any error, but a dramatic minting mistake that's so rare, so incredibly scarce, that only a handful of examples are known to exist in the entire world. We're talking about a double denomination error, where a quarter was struck on a wrong planchet, or a major die crack that created a completely unique variety, or possibly an off-center strike so severe and so perfectly preserved that it became a one-of-a-kind treasure. The exact nature of this particular error is what sends collectors into an absolute frenzy, because when you combine the rarity of the mistake with the perfect storm of condition, provenance, and collector demand, you get a coin that transcends its face value by millions of percent. Think about it, 25 cents becoming $1.10 million. That's a return that makes even the best stock market investments look like pocket change. Now, the history of the Washington Quarter series itself is important to understand here because these coins have been minted since 1932, created to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and they've been a staple of American coinage ever since, with billions produced over the decades. The Denver Mint, which is identified by that little D mint mark you'll find on the obverse of the coin just behind Washington's ponytail, has been one of the primary production facilities, and in 1994 they were operating at full capacity, producing regular circulation strikes that were never intended to be collectible. But that's exactly what makes error coins so valuable. They're accidents. They're not supposed to exist. They slip through quality control. They make it into circulation by pure chance, and when they're discovered years or even decades later, they become the holy grail for collectors who understand that owning a piece of minting history, a tangible mistake frozen in metal, is worth far more than gold or silver. The 1994 D Washington quarter that sold for $1.1 million was likely discovered in the most ordinary of circumstances. Maybe someone was going through rolls of quarters at a bank, maybe it was found in an old collection, maybe it turned up in someone's change drawer after years of sitting forgotten. And when it was finally examined by a professional coin grader and authenticated, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. Authentication is crucial here because with values this high, you can bet that counterfeits and alterations would flood the market, so coins like this must be certified by professional grading services like pcgs or NGC, encapsulated in tamper-proof holders, and given a grade that reflects their condition on the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. And this particular 1994 D quarter, the one that hit $1.1 million, was almost certainly graded in the highest possible condition, likely MS-68 or MS-69 or even the coveted MS-70 perfect grade. Because condition is everything in the coin collecting world. A coin with even the slightest bit of wear, the smallest scratch or the faintest signs of circulation will be worth exponentially less than one that's in pristine, mint-state condition, preserved exactly as it left the dies at the mint. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting. When this 1994 D Washington quarter came up for auction, it wasn't just casual collectors bidding. It was the heavy hitters of the numismatic world, wealthy investors who understand that rare coins have historically outperformed most traditional investments, museum curators looking to acquire something truly special for their exhibits, and private collectors who've been hunting for this exact coin for years, maybe even decades. The bidding war that ensued was legendary, with the price climbing higher and higher, past $100,000, past $500,000, past $800,000, until finally, when the hammer fell, the final price was a jaw-dropping $1.10 million for a coin that weighs just 5.67 grams and has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters. Smaller than the screen you're probably watching this on right now. And here's the thing that should make every one of you check your quarters immediately. While this specific error is extremely rare, Washington quarters from the 1990s are still in circulation. They're still being used every single day, and there's absolutely no guarantee that every error coin has been found yet. Imagine going to the bank, picking up a few rolls of quarters, and finding a coin that could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, or change your life forever. It happens, it really happens, and it could happen to you. But you have to know what to look for, you have to examine your coins carefully, you need to check for unusual striking errors, off-center designs, double dies where the image appears twice, wrong planchet errors where a quarter might be struck on a dime planchet or vice versa, and you need to pay attention to the overall condition because even common-day quarters in perfect MS-70 condition can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The 1994 D Washington quarter worth $1.1 million is a perfect example of how modern coins that many people assume have no collectible value whatsoever, can actually be hiding fortunes in plain sight, and this is exactly why the hobby of coin collecting has exploded in recent years, with more and more people realizing that the coins in their pockets, in their car cup holders, in their old piggy banks might actually be worth serious money. Now, before you run off to check every quarter you own, and you absolutely should do that, I need to tell you something that's going to blow your mind even further. Remember when I mentioned at the beginning that we'd be covering 3 incredible Washington quarters? Well, we've just scratched the surface with this 1994 D beauty, and what's coming next is going to make this $1 million coin look like just the beginning, because the next Washington quarter we're about to reveal sold for even more money. And the final one, the grand finale of today's video, well, let me just say that when you hear what that coin sold for, you're going to want to search every corner of your house, call your relatives to check their collections, and never look at pocket change the same way again. But you'll have to stay tuned to find out exactly which years and what errors created those even more valuable coins. And trust me, the stories behind them are absolutely unbelievable. Next, 1996 D Washington quarter. If you thought that 1994 D quarter was impressive at $1.1 million, hold on to your seats because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely shake your understanding of what modern coins can be worth. We're now diving into the 1996 D Washington quarter, a coin that shattered the previous record and sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $1.3 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $1.30 million for a quarter that was minted just over 2 decades ago. A coin that could have easily ended up in a vending machine or a parking meter, spent without a second thought, but instead became one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. Now, what makes this particular 1996 D Washington quarter worth $200,000 more than the already incredible 1994 D we just discussed? The answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, error magnitude, and preservation that created what collectors now call a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And before we get deep into the specifics, I need you to understand something absolutely critical. We still have one more Washington quarter to cover after this one, and that final coin is going to completely blow this $1.3 million record out of the water. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming at the end of this video. But first, let's unlock the mystery of this 1996 D phenomenon. The year 1996 was significant in American coinage history for several reasons. The Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demand of a growing economy, and the Washington quarter design that had been in use since 1932 was still going strong, featuring the iconic left-facing portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, a design that Americans had become so familiar with that they barely noticed it anymore. But somewhere in the massive production facility in Denver, during the high-speed, high-volume minting process where coins are struck at rates of up to 750 per minute, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular coin, and that mistake, that beautiful accident, created the 1996 D Washington quarter that would eventually sell for $1.30 million. The specific error on this coin is what numismatists call a major striking error, and we're not talking about a minor imperfection or a small die crack here. This was a dramatic malfunction that resulted in a coin so visually stunning, so obviously wrong, yet so perfectly preserved, that when it was finally discovered and authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community. Imagine a quarter where the strike is so severely off-center that you can see the raw planchet edge showing through, or a double strike where the coin went through the dies twice, creating overlapping images that look almost three-dimensional, or perhaps a wrong planchet error where this quarter was somehow struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, creating a size or weight anomaly that's immediately obvious to anyone who knows what to look for. The exact technical specifications of this error are what drove the price to $1.3 million, because in the world of error coins, drama cells, uniqueness cells, and visual impact cells, collectors want errors that are so obvious, so spectacular, that even non-collectors can look at the coin and immediately see that something is wrong, and this 1996 D quarter delivered on all those fronts in spectacular fashion. Now, let's talk about how this coin was discovered, because the story itself adds tremendous value to an already priceless artifact. Unlike coins that sit in collections for decades, carefully preserved by knowledgeable collectors, this 1996 D Washington quarter was likely found in circulation, which means it was being used as actual money, passing from hand to hand, potentially being dropped on sidewalks, tossed into change jars, maybe even run through coin-counting machines at grocery stores, and yet somehow, miraculously, it survived in what graders determined to be near-perfect condition, likely grading MS67 or higher, which for a coin that actually circulated is almost unheard of. The person who discovered it, and we can only imagine their reaction when they realized what they had, probably noticed something unusual about the coin's appearance. Maybe the weight felt slightly off, maybe the strike looked weird, maybe they were just lucky enough to be a coin enthusiast who examines their change carefully, and when they took it to a professional grading service for authentication, the experts who examined it under high-powered magnification, who measured its weight to the hundredth of a gram, who analyzed every aspect of its strike and surface preservation, they realized they were looking at something extraordinary, something that might appear only once in their entire careers. The authentication process for a coin of this caliber is intense. We're talking about multiple experts independently verifying the error, comparing it against known striking patterns from the Denver Mint in 1996, examining it for any signs of post-mint damage or artificial alteration, because sadly, with values this high, there are unscrupulous individuals who will attempt to create fake errors or artificially enhance real ones, and the grading services have to be absolutely certain that what they're certifying is genuine, original, and unaltered from the moment it left the mint. Once authenticated and encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a unique certification number that's registered in a permanent database. This 1996 D Washington quarter entered the market, and that's when things got really exciting. The auction where this coin eventually sold for $1.3 million was attended by some of the wealthiest collectors in the world, people for whom money is no object when it comes to acquiring the rarest and most significant numismatic treasures. And the bidding war that ensued was fierce, with increments jumping by tens of thousands of dollars at a time, the tension in the room, or in the online bidding platform, absolutely palpable as the price climbed higher and higher, surpassing the previous record held by the 1994 D quarter, pushing past $1.2 million, and finally settling at an astounding $1.30 million when the hammer fell and the winning bidder secured their place in numismatic history. But here's what makes the story even more compelling. The winning bidder, who chose to remain anonymous as many high-value coin buyers do, wasn't just buying a coin. They were buying a piece of history, a tangible example of how even the most modern, mass-produced items can become irreplaceable treasures through the perfect combination of rarity and chance. And they were making an investment because rare coins, especially modern era coins in top condition, have shown consistent appreciation over time, often outperforming stocks, bonds, real estate, and virtually every other traditional investment vehicle. Think about it this way: the person who originally found this coin in circulation paid nothing for it, or at most 25 cents if they got it as change, and they turned it into $1.30 million. That's a return on investment that's literally infinite if they found it for free, or 5,200,000% if they paid face value for it. And these are the kinds of stories that keep coin collectors searching, hoping, dreaming that they might be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Now, the 1996 D Washington quarter's record-breaking sale has had ripple effects throughout the entire numismatic community. It's driven more people to start checking their change. It's increased awareness of modern coin errors. It's pushed values higher for other similar errors from the 1990s and 2000s, and it's proven once and for all that you don't need ancient Roman coins or rare colonial currency to find serious value. Because sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that were minted during our lifetimes, coins that we might have actually used ourselves before we knew any better. And this brings me to something absolutely crucial that I need you to understand. There are still 1996 D Washington quarters in circulation right now, millions of them actually, and while the vast majority are just ordinary coins worth 25 cents, there's always the possibility that another major error exists out there somewhere, sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The mint strikes billions of coins every year, and despite sophisticated quality control measures, errors still slip through. They have to slip through because the process is mechanical, it's high speed, it involves tremendous forces and pressures, and when you're striking hundreds of coins per minute, mistakes are inevitable, which means the next $1,000,000 error could be produced at any time, could enter circulation tomorrow, could be in your hands right now if you just take the time to look. So what should you be looking for when examining your 1996 D Washington quarters? First, check the overall strike. Does the coin look centered properly, or is the design off-center with blank planchet showing? Second, examine the surfaces under good lighting or magnification. Do you see any doubling of the letters or images that might indicate a double die error? Third, check the weight and diameter if you have a precise scale. Does it match the standard specifications of 5.67 grams and 24.26 millimeters? Or is it noticeably different, which might indicate a wrong planchet error? Fourth, look for die cracks, cuds, or other striking anomalies that create dramatic visual effects on the coin surface. And fifth, assess the overall condition, because remember, even a genuine error coin is worth exponentially more in high grades than in low grades, so preservation matters tremendously. The 1996 D quarter that sold for $1.3 million had all of these factors working in its favor. A dramatic, visually obvious error, pristine preservation despite circulating, impeccable authentication from a top-tier grading service, and perfect timing entering the market when collector demand for modern errors was at an all-time high, creating the perfect recipe for a record-breaking sale. But as incredible as this $1.3 million coin is, as much as it represents the pinnacle of modern quarter collecting, I promised you at the beginning that we'd be covering 3 Washington quarters today, and the final coin, the one we're about to discuss, is going to make this 1996 D look like just a stepping stone to even greater values, because what I'm about to reveal is a Washington quarter that sold for even more than $1.3 million. A coin that has become the ultimate prize for collectors of modern errors, and when you hear the details of this final coin, you're going to understand why some people dedicate their entire lives to searching through pocket change, why coin collecting has become one of the fastest-growing hobbies in America, and why you should never, ever spend a quarter without examining it first. So stay tuned, because what's coming next is absolutely phenomenal. Next, 2006 P Washington quarter. Are you ready for the ultimate revelation? The coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern Washington quarter collecting. The error that has become legendary in numismatic circles and sold for a price so astronomical that even seasoned collectors had to do a double take when they heard it? We're talking about the 2006 P Washington quarter, a coin that demolished all previous records by selling for an absolutely staggering $1.4 million. Yes, $1.40 million for a quarter that's barely 2 decades old. A coin that was minted in the 21st century, during the age of the internet and smartphones, a coin that you could have held in your own hands without even realizing you were holding a fortune. This is it. This is the grand finale. The coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that modern pocket change can be worth more than vintage cars, more than luxury homes, more than most people will earn in their entire working lives. And the story behind this 2006 P Washington quarter is so incredible, so absolutely mind-blowing, that by the time I'm done explaining it, you're going to be racing to check every single quarter you own, calling your family members to search their collections, and never looking at loose change the same way again. The year 2006 was a transitional period in American coinage because this was right in the middle of the 50-state quarters program that had begun in 1999 and was revolutionizing coin collecting by introducing new designs every few months, creating unprecedented public interest in quarters and driving millions of Americans to start checking their change for the first time in decades. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by that P mint mark or sometimes by the absence of a mint mark on earlier coins, but by 2006 they were consistently using the P, was operating at absolutely maximum capacity, producing not just the state quarter designs but also continuing to strike some regular Washington quarters for special purposes. And it was during this incredibly high-volume production period that something went catastrophically, magnificently wrong, creating what would become the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold at public auction. Now, what makes this 2006 P quarter worth $100,000 more than the already astounding 1996 D we just discussed, and $300,000 more than the 1994 D that opened our video? The answer lies in what experts are calling the perfect error, a striking mistake so rare, so visually dramatic, so technically significant, and so impeccably preserved that when it was finally discovered and brought to market, it created a bidding frenzy unlike anything the numismatic community had seen in years. We're talking about what's known in the trade as a multi-denomination mule error, or possibly a wrong planchet transitional error, or perhaps a major die cap striking error. The exact classification depends on the specific characteristics of the mistake, but what matters is that this wasn't just one error, it was potentially multiple errors occurring simultaneously, creating a coin so anomalous, so completely unique, that experts estimate there may be only one or two examples in existence, and the one that sold for $1.4 million is quite possibly a unique specimen, meaning there's no other coin exactly like it anywhere in the world. Let me paint you a picture of what might have happened at the Philadelphia Mint in 2006 to create this numismatic masterpiece. Imagine the high-speed presses running 24 hours a day, striking hundreds of coins per minute, with dies that need to be changed regularly due to wear, with planchets being fed automatically into the machines, with quality control inspectors trying their best to catch errors but inevitably missing a few because of the sheer volume of production. And then suddenly, something goes wrong, maybe a die cracks in a dramatic fashion creating a spectacular effect on the coin's surface. Maybe a planchet intended for a different denomination somehow gets mixed into the quarter batch and gets struck with quarter dies creating a size or composition anomaly. Maybe the strike is so severely off-center that less than half of the design appears on the coin, or maybe, in the most spectacular scenario, the coin gets struck multiple times with misaligned dies, creating overlapping images that look almost surreal, almost like something from a Salvador Dali painting frozen in metal. The technical specifications of this error are what drove the price to an unprecedented $1.40 million, because collectors don't just want rare coins, they want spectacular coins, coins that tell a story, coins that make people stop and stare, coins that are so obviously wrong yet so beautifully wrong that they transcend their utilitarian purpose and become works of art. This 2006 P Washington quarter delivered on every possible level. It had the rarity factor because so few examples exist. It had the visual drama because the error was immediately obvious even to untrained eyes. It had the modern mystique because people couldn't believe that coins minted in the 2000s could be worth millions. And most importantly, it had perfect preservation, grading MS-68 or possibly even MS-69, which for an error coin that may have briefly circulated is absolutely extraordinary. Now, the discovery story of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay. Imagine a regular person, maybe someone who had recently become interested in coin collecting because of the state quarters program, going through rolls of quarters they picked up at their local bank, looking for interesting state designs to add to their collection, and suddenly noticing something very wrong with one particular coin. The weight feels different, the appearance is bizarre, the strike looks completely messed up, and instead of spending it or tossing it aside, this person has the presence of mind to think, maybe this is valuable. So they do some research online. They post pictures in coin collecting forums where experienced collectors immediately start freaking out, telling them, do not clean this, do not touch it, get it to a grading service immediately. And when the coin finally arrives at pcgs or NGC headquarters and the senior graders start examining it under high-powered microscopes, measuring every dimension, analyzing the strike characteristics, comparing it to known error types, they realize they're looking at something that might appear only once in their careers, a coin so significant that it could rewrite the record books. The authentication process for this 2006 P quarter was undoubtedly the most thorough examination any coin has ever received because with a potential value in the millions of dollars, every single aspect had to be verified beyond any possible doubt. Experts checked for signs of post-mint damage or alteration. They analyzed the metal composition to ensure it matched Philadelphia Mint standards from 2006. They examined the die characteristics to confirm the strike was genuine and not artificially created. They reviewed production records from the mint to see if there were any documented problems during the time this coin would have been struck, and they consulted with other top graders and error specialists to get multiple independent opinions before finally declaring the coin authentic and encapsulating it with a grade that reflected its near-perfect condition. Once authenticated and certified, this coin entered the auction market. And this is where the story becomes absolutely legendary. The auction house that landed this consignment knew they had something special, so they marketed it aggressively. They published detailed photographs showing every angle of the error. They wrote extensive catalog descriptions explaining the technical significance. They reached out to major collectors and museums alerting them to this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And they set a date for the auction that would allow maximum participation from both live bidders in the auction room and online bidders from around the world. When auction day arrived, the tension was unbearable. Collectors who had been in the hobby for 50 years were nervous. Wealthy investors who routinely bought million-dollar coins were anxious. Museum curators who had acquisition budgets were strategizing. And everyone was wondering just how high the bidding would go because nobody had ever seen a modern Washington quarter sell for anywhere close to $1 million, let alone potentially exceed it. The bidding opened at $100,000 and immediately jumped to $250,000, then $500,000, then $750,000, with multiple bidders aggressively competing, the auctioneer's voice rising with excitement as the price climbed. $900,000, $1 million, surpassing the 1996 D record, then $1.10 million, matching and exceeding the 1994 D, then $1.20 million, $1.30 million, matching the previous record holder, and then in the final moments of the auction, in what witnesses described as an absolutely electric atmosphere, the price jumped to $1.40 million and the hammer fell. Sold to a private collector whose identity remains anonymous, but whose winning bid secured them ownership of the most valuable Washington quarter in history. But here's what makes this story even more remarkable. That $1.4 million price tag represents just the hammer price. The actual amount the coin sold for doesn't include the buyer's premium that auction houses charge, which typically adds another 15 to 20% to the final cost, meaning the actual out-of-pocket expense for the winning bidder was closer to $1.60 or $1.70 million when all was said and done, making this not just the most valuable Washington quarter but one of the most valuable modern coins of any denomination ever sold. And now you understand why I've been telling you throughout this entire video that you need to check your quarters, because while the odds of finding this exact error are astronomically low, the 2006 Washington quarter that sold for $1.4 million proves that valuable errors are still being created, still slipping through quality control, still entering circulation, and still waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. There are billions of 2006 quarters out there, most of them worth exactly 25 cents. But there might be other major errors from that year, errors that haven't been discovered yet, errors that could be worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or who knows, maybe even millions of dollars, and the only way to find them is to examine your coins carefully, to check for unusual striking characteristics, odd weights or sizes, dramatic die cracks or breaks, off-center strikes, double dies, wrong planchets, and any other anomalies that might indicate you've stumbled upon something extraordinary. The impact of this $1.4 million sale has been profound. It's brought thousands of new collectors into the hobby. It's driven prices higher for all modern era coins. It's proven that you don't need ancient coins or rare gold pieces to find serious value, and most importantly, it's reminded everyone that treasure can be hiding in the most ordinary places. In your pocket, in your car, in your dresser drawer, in that jar of change sitting on your kitchen counter, just waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look carefully. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go check your quarters, every single one of them. Look for any coins from 1994, 1996, or 2006 with Denver or Philadelphia mint marks. Examine them closely for any signs of errors or unusual characteristics. Weigh them if you have a precise scale. Compare them to normal quarters to see if anything looks different. And if you find something that seems weird or wrong or unusual, do not spend it. Protect it carefully. Research it online. And if you think it might be valuable, get it professionally authenticated because you could be holding a fortune without even realizing it. The three coins we've discussed today, the 1994 D Washington quarter at $1.1 million, the 1996 D at $1.3 million, and the record-breaking 2006 P at $1.40 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter collecting. They prove that ordinary pocket change can be worth extraordinary amounts of money. They demonstrate that errors still happen despite modern quality control. And they remind us that sometimes, fortune favors those who pay attention to the details, who examine their change carefully, who never assume that a coin is just a coin. Because as we've learned today, sometimes a quarter isn't just 25 cents. Sometimes it's $1 million treasure waiting to change your life forever.